side tonight. You're the reason that I feel so strong, the reason that I'm hanging on. You know you gave me all the time. Well, did I give enough of mine? Hold on, darling. This body is yours. This body is yours and mine. Well, hold on, my darling. This mess was yours. Now your mess is mine. Your mess is mine.
Oh my gosh, you're Ben Bakken's keyboardist. You are an asshole.
Well, do his kids go to Apple Valley? Even? That's basically private school. Yeah.
shockingly close to my house, so I thought
It is a nice school.
Yeah, it's real. You have a real problem with Washburn's not good enough for your kids, Ward.
I know.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Yeah,
Nice to be with you.
they're going to deal with sound.
We,
That's way different.
I'm Chris, by the way. And we're going to start things off today with an old Police tune in a little
Keeping track of mistakes today.
unplugged kind of way. We've been talking about all kinds of things that are kind of, bigger things that we want to deal with. Today we're going to bump up against climate change and, these last couple weeks were the political polarization, just small things. But this tune is called One World. I think it gives us good little bit of reminder and inspiration. We'll keep coming back to this chorus, so feel free to sing along. It goes like this. One world is enough for all of us. Sing that. One world is enough for all of us. It's a subject we rarely mention, but when we do, we have this little invention. By pretending they're a different world from me, I shirk my responsibility. Oh, one world is enough for all of us. One world is enough for all of us. The third world breathes our air tomorrow. We live on the time we borrow. You know there's no time for sorrow. In their world there is no tomorrow. But one world is enough for all of us. One world is enough for all of us. Lights are drawn upon the world before we get our flags unfurled. Whichever one we pick, it's just a self-deluding trick. 'Cause one world is enough for all of us. 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 Don't wanna bring a sour note. Remember this before you vote. We can all sink or we all float, 'cause we're all in the same big boat. And one world is enough for all of us. Yeah, one world is enough for all of us. Sing that out. One world is enough for all of us. One world is enough for all of us. They seem a million miles away. Gets a little closer every day. It may seem a million miles away. Gets a little closer every day. Seem a million miles away, but it gets a little closer every day. It may seem a million miles away, but it gets a little closer every day. I said one world for all of us. One world is enough for all of us. Oh, one world for right, thank you. Well, once again, welcome. Would you stand up? We'll sing this next one together, please. Oh, a few things in my voice, sorry. This next one is one I wrote with you all in mind. Wrote it with my friend Laura Lou. Yeah, Twins of Franklin have a new record out, actually. Her band. Coming out. This one's called Sure Not Sure. Aaron's gonna lead this one.
Are you tired like I am? This dead end.
There's still space to rest.
Try again. One is right and one is wrong. Feels like we're caught in between conflicting certainty. There's something in there. It's not neat and clean. Just bending the breeze like a strong tree. What's down deep? Oh, I don't know.
Sing this out.
You don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Oh, I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know. It's time we think on how we're taught. To stay so siloed in our thought. Back the door and listen up. Drive your clip and store love. This is good, this is hard together. This is love, this is all together. What can we hope to know but better? Questions, sure. I don't know, you don't know, we don't know.
You sing that out?
We don't know. Oh, I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Oh, I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Oh, I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Oh, I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Oh, I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know.
Thanks. Go ahead and have a seat, please.
Fabric. Thank you all for choosing to be here with us this morning. I am Ren, and something that I really value about this community is we have these little things that hang off the wall back here, and my favorite one is Whimsify. To just be a little silly, kind of push the boundaries, don't take ourselves very seriously, and I think that just allows me to really, really feel at home here. Some orienting facts this morning. We have coffee, water, tea on that table over there. There is gendered bathrooms straight down the hallway, and then there's a gender-neutral bathroom with like a changing table, fully accessible bathroom. You're just gonna have to follow some signs and it's like take some corners over to the other side of the school. Our kids are doing something really special right now, scuba. It's a good time to kind of celebrate the end of the year for them, and to also challenge our middle and high schoolers to take on leadership roles and to kind of really grow in themselves. I got a chance to be back there with them last week. It was a blast. I wish I could do it every week. Speaking of kids, we are in the middle of our spring giving challenge, and if we can meet our goal today, so of 40 donors, we're 6 away, then some children will be able to give Heidi a makeover. And if we can exceed our goal by a few people, then Della and Jen are going to get in on the fun too. Sorry. So when you came in, you all should have gotten a Sunday paper. If you didn't, Karin is still over by the door, and grab one of these, kind of can follow along with the message this morning. But more importantly, in there is a communication card. Whether this is your first time or your millionth time, feel free to fill this out. The staff really look over it, and it is their favorite part of the week to get to hear what is going on with you, what's on your heart, what's on your mind. And then, as we are in this series, we have art tables set up kind of all over. And we really encourage you to kind of gather around them. But before we get to that, all the kids can go meet Della wearing her wonderful squid costume. And mantis shrimp, sorry, I did know that, mantis shrimp costume to head on back to scuba. And then the adults, to stay in here with us, I encourage you to wander over to the art tables, kind of find something that speaks to you for this morning, and to kind of get us in a mode to be thinking about challenging things. As you're over there, find someone you don't know very well and ask them if when they play with Play-Doh, if they're a one-color person or if they like to mix the colors.
Good morning. Hey everybody on the live stream. It's Melissa here at Field, and we have a lot of fun stuff happening here. I hope you do too where you are, and if you don't, then may our positive energy come your way through the miracle of the live stream. So yeah, sometimes technology can help us feel more human, and sometimes it can help us feel less human. So let's make it be more human today. Thank you for joining us this way. If you're logged in with Google, you can actually add comments in the live stream and say where you're live streaming from. That'd be fun. We have someone here who has been live streaming from the North Pole and is here today. Isn't that exciting? So that could be you. Wherever you are, you could connect in so many ways and eventually come meet us in real life, because we love that. And we're talking about Unearthed, being courageous in the face of big things. And we're talking about some big societal things right now. And we're kind of naming too that the courage that it takes to face those isn't so different from the courage it takes to face the big things that we have in our own lives that we need to look at. And sometimes practicing one can help us practice courage in the other. I'm going to leave it at that. So today, I hope you can feel some meaningful connections from where you are, and send us messages using our contact card about what this is like, what the live stream experience is like, prayers, comments, feedback, just who you are. We'd love to connect that way, and in any way that you feel comfortable with. So thanks, and I want to shout out to the crew behind the camera and behind the microphone stuff that I don't even know what it all is. The sound booth. Thank you. Yeah, for you guys. So, all right, bye.
All right. Well, I would invite you guys to wrap up the conversations. And I would you don't even need to head back to your seats necessarily. I'd encourage you to feel free to keep moving and to let your body be where it feels like it needs to be. I am going to interrupt you for just a moment, though. So go ahead and take a nice deep breath all together, would you? Breathe in and let it out. All right, and then last week I did a little, over the last couple weeks, we took a couple breaths that were maybe some of us found a little hitch in our breath as we took a breath in, and I mentioned politics, or the political divide, the polarization, right? I want to do that again. I want you to take a deep breath in, and I want to see what happens in your body when I say climate change. Okay, let it out. Take a couple more deep breaths with that just sort of rumbling around in there. Notice if you feel numb, don't really feel like you have the capacity to give a rip. Or maybe you feel some anxiety bubbling up right away. Okay? Breathe in. Breathe out. And these weeks we have these tables set up. These are not art stations, all right? These are not like make a little project to take home. This is... Sorry, guys, if you made something really nice. I didn't mean to. But the hope here is process a little bit, okay? This is stuff that, I don't know about you, but I don't do any kind of like active, physical, embodied sort of practice regularly, usually. Where I'm thinking about hard stuff, calling it to mind, letting it sit in my body, acknowledging it, and trying to move it on, trying to metabolize that. So I would encourage you to stand up, especially through the gathering as we're hearing conversation bubble up. Just feel free, like truly feel free. And if you feel safest, if you feel best held in those seats where you are, that's just fine, truly. But if there's something that could be expressed by a single little scribble of pen on your Sunday paper, or I don't know, like finger paints squished into that paper, and like any of that stuff, just dump it right here in the dirt here. This is the soil for us to be growing through, okay? And I don't know if it's just because you guys are like polite and good followers in this moment too, but like, or if you just don't, if it's not something that connects, but like truly, I dare you just to stand up, and as we sing this next one, just stand up and walk, get something. If you feel nothing, I say climate change and you feel nothing, I dare you to represent that somehow on a piece of paper, because that says something too. I mean, we look at this issue and so many of the other big issues, there's a reason if you don't feel something, I think, and it's not because you're not aware, okay? So wonder at it just a little bit, I dare you, okay? This one is called Awake My Soul. Fickle my heart and how woozy my eyes, struggle to find any truth in your lies. Now my heart stumbles on things I don't know. This weakness I feel I must finally show. Lend me your hand and we'll conquer them all. Lend me your heart and I'll just let you fall. Lend me your eyes, I can change what you see. Your soul you must keep totally free.
heart and how was my eyes. I struggle to find any truth in your lies. Now my heart stumbles on things I don't know. This weakness I feel I must finally show. In these bodies we will live, in these bodies we will die. Where you invest your love, you invest your life. In these bodies we will live, in these bodies we will die. Where you invest your love, you invest your life.
Feel free to move freely, whatever you feel. You don't have to sit.
Am I up?
You are.
All right, cool. Good morning. Good to be together today. Thanks for being here on a beautiful sunshiny morning. So, throughout this series that we're doing, Unearthed, so we started many weeks ago now in a series called Rooted, and we talked about what does it mean for us to be rooted in ourselves, in community, in all others on this planet, and what does it mean for us to be rooted in God or the divine, and kind of be, that three-stranded wovenness. And out of that then emerges, how are we unearthed? How do we look up from just ourselves and look at some of these big issues in the world? We talked about political polarization the last couple weeks, and we solved it. We figured it out, didn't we? We figured it out. And so now, we've got time. So we're gonna solve climate crisis together. Yeah. All right. So that's what we're gonna do with good courage, looking at big stuff. How do we take big things and kind of make it a little more manageable? So I wanted to start today just in kind of a reflection on wisdom traditions like the one that we emerge from, right? From Christianity, which I think is both a wisdom tradition and a tradition that borrows from other wisdom traditions. And in one of the there's two creation stories in the first book of the Bible, right? Genesis. Two different, opposing sometimes, creation stories. And in the second of the two, in Genesis 2, it says that Yahweh, God, took the human and settled him in the garden to farm it and to take care of it. And I think as we think about ourselves and our relationship to the earth, to all the rest of creation, and indeed to each other, we have this responsibility, we have this job to do, to care about all of it, to tend to it well. That's the job we've been given. And I think when we abandon our responsibility to the earth and to each other and to this task, myself included, believe that this job that we've been entrusted with, I think we're seeing the net impact of that in our world. How many of you kind of follow climate change? Do you follow it? I feel like this is something that we care deeply about because we have to. Like, if how the earth goes, so go we, right? Not a good look for us to not to not care about it, right? But it's also something where when we talk about climate change, unlike political polarization, where that's an issue where we see it happening in our lives, in our interpersonal relationships with parents and siblings and aunts and uncles and grandparents and neighbors and coworkers, and like political polarization hits us right in the face, right in the gut. And this is one of those issues that seems to me almost like too big for me to do anything about myself. It feels overwhelming. So by show of hands, how many of you feel a certain sense of impending dread or despair, or even denial about that? I am so glad I'm not alone. Look around, note that you are not alone in that dread. And so luckily, we can and we get to look up from whatever feelings we have, right? So again, I'm going to reiterate, whatever you're feeling, notice that in your body. Feel free to get up, move around, shake it off if you need to. Express it however feels right for you. But we're going to be looking up from ourselves and noticing those feelings in our bodies to see a bigger picture, to let ourselves sort of soften into curiosity and to brave uncertainty together. And today, I'm really happy to say that we have a guest with us, a guide in this work, to share with us how he approaches problem solving and his work with challenges that are just so big. So Joshua Lewis is a climate justice movement organizer for Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light. He developed canvassing skills, organizing in communities and labor unions across the country for Working America AFL-CIO as a field director, and now is utilizing those skills and developing as an organizer in the Twin Cities. As a father of a 5-year-old, Joshua is passionate about building community capacity, both instrumentally and intrinsically, to improve public health outcomes and well-being in our most underserved communities. This work comes in the form of outreach and engagement that connects households and institutions to resources like those offered by the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as empowering individuals with the awareness of their ability to create change through governing bodies' decision-making around energy and waste management. So please, help me welcome Joshua Lewis to the conversation. Welcome. Glad you're here.
I'm happy to be here with you all, and thankful for that wonderful introduction, the wonderful music by Chris and the worship team. And this feels like a very special place. I really love the aspects of being able to find comfort and movement of your body. I feel like so often it's something that is left out of the conversation. But in these issues, we do experience some feedback, right? Not only in the microphones, but but in our bodies. And shout out to the sound team. I know they've been here very early, working to get everything going well. And ultimately, when we're faced with anxiety, when we're faced with tension, when we're faced with conflict in our communities and decision making and all these different ideas and the opportunity that we have feedback loops in our body, right? It can make us feel anxious or make us feel stressed out. And I like to, in the past, when I had canvassers who were door knocking, whether it's election work or issue-based work, to say that's, right, refer back to the metaphor and also literal analogy of that energy is your ancestors, right? It's your ancestry. It's something that's been designed to communicate information to you from your bodily state to help guide you in your decision-making process. It's not something to run away from or to be fearful of, but oftentimes when we are feeling that anxiety or that buildup, what we need to do is move. That's what we're designed to do as human beings, to be upright and to look around and be processing information. I wanted to say I'm very impressed by the structures you guys have put here and happy to be here. And should I start and jump into the land acknowledgement?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have some notes here. I'm working on my being long-winded delta. So I brought some notes to make sure I can stay on track and on point and not keep everyone here too late, because we got some celebrating to do, right? It's Earth Day. Hello,
Dinner's
everyone.
at 5 o'clock.
Dinner's at 5
Yeah.
o'clock. Okay, as long as I get done by then,
Yeah.
right? All right. If you have a role in preparing dinner and need to leave early, please feel free. Don't want the food to not be ready. Hello, everyone. I would like to start by welcoming you to either close your eyes or lower your gaze. We take a few moments to acknowledge the land that we are on. Wherever you may be, let us acknowledge that we are all on indigenous land. Minnesota is located on the traditional and contemporary homelands of the Anishinaabe and Dakota peoples, the original stewards of this territory. We also acknowledge the trauma that is deeply embedded in the foundation of this country. The land we reside on came under control of the USA through genocide, slavery, and ongoing occupation. We recognize the deep historical, spiritual, and personal trauma that has impacted indigenous communities, communities of color, and immigrant communities. By offering this acknowledgement of trauma, we affirm the right of people to bring their whole selves and stories into this space and reaffirm our intention to promote healing, respect, love, and justice. Justice which recognizes that while we live in an ongoing occupation, we have an opportunity to end it and be the voice of morality and land back in the correction of the orientation of our hearts in the moment. I ask you now, with your eyes closed or your head still lower, to look within yourself, to look in between the constructs of space and time that we find ourselves aware of, and recognize that opportunity present in your awareness. Recognize the motif of the story that we find ourselves in. We all have ancestry, and eventually in that line a common ancestor, and recognizing our flesh that will one day return to the earth, and our ancient and sacred universal spirit reflecting back the materiality of today. A spirit that is an awareness, that is a privilege to be in tune and in rhythm with the cosmic song that we sing. As an appendage, recognizing our oneness, we are grateful for one another. We don't sacrifice our leg to put a crown on top of our heads, just as in our own sustainable investing act passed by the United States government. We don't sacrifice the future of our planet for today. We stand for the rights of Menominee as we choose to not sacrifice our way of being and our cultural heritages and tools that we have of understanding ways we can relate to one another and the earth. As they say, we don't cut paradise to put up a parking lot, right? We don't take a shortcut for a cheap thrill or a shopping mall. And we don't take action without thinking through the consequences and understanding the risks involved as we stand for things in legislation, such as Prove It First legislation and other opportunities that we have here today. I ask now that we collectively lift our gaze, rising because one must arrive upon the light to seize the opportunity of the day ahead of us, to repair what has been at odds, what has been out of balance in our decision-making bodies, our relationship with ourselves, with one another, and the planet. We are here in this moment because we are choosing to embrace responsibility and addressing the needs to build community today. An opportunity has presented itself, and we are grateful in taking these steps and having these interactions. We need to take a second and look for someone to share in this moment with. Maybe someone you haven't spoken to yet today. And tell them that you're grateful to be here. Tell them why you're grateful to be here. And take a second to discuss and lean into the question of what are we celebrating on Earth Day? What is the purpose of this? Why are you celebrating Earth Day? And be okay to go into that question acknowledging humbly ignorance if you're not sure why you want to celebrate Earth Day, but carry that seed with you.
Go ahead. Thank you for that. That's beautiful.
A couple minutes.
Good. As you find a natural ending place to your conversations, we invite you to return to the large group here. All right. Welcome back to the large group, everybody. I'd love to invite you, Joshua, to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your work with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, and anything else you'd want us to know about that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I know there was a slide up there of a photo. Can we pull that slide back up? I'll introduce you all to. So that's myself and my daughter, Meraki. When she grows up, she wants to be an engineer, astronaut, doctor, and a rock star. Behind us is the beautiful Lake Joanna, one of over 10,000 pristine lakes of the North Star State. I personally grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, raised by former farmers, collecting rainwater, gardening, shepherding beagles and coonhounds as hunting dogs, playing football, baseball with friends, traveling to my great-grandparents' farm in rural Alabama, spending my young summers in the red clay, hunting, fishing, while dodging fire ants and ground wasps. I'm the great-grandson of Reverend Woodson Lewis, who was a 70-plus year senior pastor of Little Mount Zion, the church baptized in fire, not once, but twice. He spoke at the Hate Crime Summit of '96 that was put on by the Bible Belt State Attorney Generals and President Clinton. And in his speech, it was so simple and pure. And he was about 94, 95 years old, so nearly 100 years old when he gave it. He just wanted to thank his local community in rural Alabama and the Quaker Mennonites from the East Coast who traveled down to help rebuild his church as it had doubled in size after the second time that it was burned down by some antagonists in the South. I'm the grandson of prophetess Daisy Simmons and son of two beautiful, resilient people in Sherry and Thomas. I've spent the better part of my life in intergenerationally linked communities where my neighborhood block was all family and friends, and I was safe and free to explore the world and myself. And I found myself identifying with the intentional process of the community building culture that I was born into. And I found it seamless to be able to apply my way of being, ideally, in my everyday life. Except for the occasional email or administrative task. I admit that takes a little more effort for me. I have an older sister who is a party thrower and a real people person, whom when we convene, we celebrate our gratitude and show reverence to our loved ones and those resting in paradise. And we promise to continue carrying on tradition. A big part of that tradition is our relationship with the community and with nature. I carry on as a climate justice organizer for MNIPL. We are a multiracial, predominantly women-led organization on the forefront of climate justice work in Minnesota. We work with dozens of other environmental and racial justice organizations and help to bring the moral voice of equity to the climate movement space. Our new mission statement is Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light works to forge an equitable green future and to repair the harms that extraction and greed have brought to the planet and people. We do so by fostering relationships and community, advancing systemic change, and empowering individuals and groups to take practical actions for decarbonization and climate justice. Our core work over the past 10 years was to organize and do deep base building within a network of 400 faith communities in Minnesota. Here to the left, you can see in action, we organized, this is a different slide, I'm sorry. Oh, perfect. Here you can see folks showing up at the 100% lobby day in the Capitol. The image before this showed some of the work we were doing organizing around Line 3 to protect sacred lands, protect the water, and everything that is connected to that. Here you see two of my colleagues, Sarah and Juventino. I would say in the 100% Steering Coalition, it was probably about an 8-year process before I joined MNIPL that the work began happening and building up the statewide network and infrastructure that was needed to generate the support to get a passage through our legislature for 100% clean energy by 2040 here in Minnesota. And I would say MNIPL and Honor the Earth and Indigenous Rights Organization were the tip of the spear in this fight for equity being passed in this. In about the 11th hour of 100% being passed, there were some more centrist environmental groups that wanted to push for keeping incineration. Specifically, it's a form of waste dealing that can produce some energy, but unfortunately is one of the most carbon-intensive sources of energy that is possible, and also has really negative public health impacts on the local communities that incinerators are found in, especially if they're in dense and vulnerable communities. They wanted to sneak that in as a source of clean energy, and also they wanted to add in a contract to a firm that wanted to use hydropower just on the other side of Wisconsin, saying, well, it won't count towards the damage to the ecology here in Minnesota if we do it over there, but we knew that would damage some of tribal lands in Wisconsin. And it was something we found ourselves ethically opposed to, and we had to speak up in that situation to push back. And you can go to the next slide here. And so I would say we were successful in speaking up. I would say we were annoying in our steering coalition as the group that was saying, hey, we want this, but we're not going to allow it to go forward with this step. And the rest of the group agreed, or ended up coming to an agreement to allow it to move forward without that. Nevertheless, we were faced with a challenge of, okay, fast forward a year after the passage of 100% campaign, we no longer had the infrastructure of that power group, that steering committee of our 100% campaign, but we were still short on coming towards our goals of reaching equity, ensuring that the investment would be best for all of the populations in our state, and would be investing in communities to detangle and improve upon previous issues that policy has created for people of color, for Black people, for Indigenous people here. So we created the Rise and Repair Coalition to fight for higher amounts of equity, and get into that as we go through the conversation. Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you for that, Joshua. The direction I was thinking here is, as we're doing this Unearthed series with the awareness that there are these big issues, and there's a lot of maybe conflicting interests and everything in these issues, it can feel too big and overwhelming to really know how to look at it. But we also know that we're called to muster the courage to talk about this stuff, right? Not only by the divine through, ancient wisdom, and also kind of the felt need that we have in our own selves, in our communities, but also because there's a practical need and consequence to taking action or not. So I'm wondering if you would mind telling us how you, as a person who cares deeply about people and about creation itself, how do you approach big stuff like climate change? How do you, in yourself, approach that?
It's a great question. I know you asked this question earlier, but sitting here, I didn't quite turn around to see the reaction from everyone. But I'm curious, who here might sometimes feel some anxiety related to climate change, or related to the news and what's going on? There's a lot of folks here. Yeah. So before I joined MNIPL, I spent about 7.5 years doing labor organizing and issue-based working class advocacy, community lobbying in communities really all across the country, mainly in the cities of Cleveland, Philadelphia, Durham, and Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Atlanta in Georgia, St. Louis, Missouri, and then here in Twin Cities, fighting to raise wages and pass more things along the lines of healthcare. And I would train folks to go out and door knock. And we would get up to 100 folks. It was a union paid job. And they got paid at least a living wage. So I'm really proud to say in those moments. And there were often times when folks were dealing with anxiety. It's a big thing to go out and talk to strangers, talk to 50 strangers every day, say as an example. And it can weigh on folks very heavily. And a large tool that I would utilize in training them, and it's because of its impact in my own personal life, are the circles of concern and circles of influence. Has anyone here ever heard of the circle of concern and the circle of influence? Yeah, I heard.
Which we've used here before.
Yeah, Bertie told me that.
Yeah.
That's something you guys heard about. And I guess if I can play some algebra, there's an equation I really love. It's E plus R equals O, and that's environment plus your response equals the outcome. And I'm using environment there in a more metaphorical term, not the literal ecological environment, but in a way it's an example of that. It's the environment of just our context in general, largely internally as well, and how we're feeling in a moment. And I would say plugging into that equation is something that's been really useful for me. If the environment is that inside I'm feeling anxious, right, and we have a desired outcome of lowering our anxiety, and we have to explore some solutions and do a little bit of that mathematical tool of guess and checking, right? It may be that we need to move around, or we need to exercise, or we need to talk to someone about this, and seeing the connection in that feedback loop to our actions and what we're trying, and ultimately understanding that we're not alone in solving these problems. And in our anxiety, I believe, is a large part of that. As humans, as social creatures, I believe that we're born with what's most important for us to engage with and flourish in our world, right? A giraffe is born and can already run, right? Because it's vulnerable out in the Serengeti, right? And we as humans, we're born, you see a helpless baby, right? That can't walk, can't do much. So how does this metaphor apply to a child? What can a child do? A child can observe what's happening outside of its world and inside of its world. And while it might not have the vocabulary to speak it coherently, they can communicate, right? They can cry. And I feel like as humans that ability to communicate is one of the most important things we have, to observe, listen, and also to communicate. So
I love that. Would you talk a little bit about the stakes in this work and what the most significant barriers to solving some of these problems seem to be?
Yeah. So if we can pull up that the third slide there, the way I like to answer this question is what's next for MNIPL and the work that we're doing. So I'll give a little bit of context. For the past 10 years, MNIPL have been doing the practical work of helping our congregations and other local businesses get to yes on solar and energy efficiency projects. And after the passage of 100% campaign, we knew that it's promised, right? We got it passed. By 2040, we're going to make it happen, but it's not going to unfold by itself. We really need to get organizing in our communities. So we launched a couple of big projects, and together with MN350 and the EJ table and many of our allies and faith organizations across the state, we were able to hold the line on many bills in 2023 and pass MNCFA, or the Minnesota Innovation Climate and Finance Authority. which is essentially a Minnesota Green Bank that will ensure that we have dollars that are reserved for our most underserved communities. The picture on the left, if you go back one slide, that's a good picture too. If you go back one slide, that picture on the left is me at our rally on March 12th. It was attended by, the estimates are 400 to 500 allies and friends. We rallied, sang, chanted, and hosted over 67 legislative visits that day. We welcomed 2 bishops, tribal leaders, youth, legislators, and more into a shared space in the rotunda. And we set up a rapid response volunteer team that met every Friday, and together we are helping each other safeguard that legislative agenda and making sure that an authentic climate justice agenda is met. And then if you go to the next slide, when it comes to equity, we remember that the devil is in the details if we truly want equity. And in the slide right before this one, you can see me testifying for a bill asking for an equity analysis in the emerging energy workforce, because ignorance is not an excuse for inequity. And also on the left, there's a district meeting with my state senator, Zainab Mohammed, and the group of folks that turned out just from my district of the one of 67 during our Rise and Repair Lobby Day on March 12th. And answering the question of where we're going, if you go to the next panel, I had a bounty, a blessing of being able to work with a class from the University of Minnesota Humphrey School. I had 27 students that were working on projects that were focused around our spokes around the hub of resiliency and community planning in the Phillips neighborhood, which isn't that far from here, and according to the Environmental Index Fund, is the second most environmentally vulnerable community within the state of Minnesota. And they worked on projects getting qualitative data on how individuals are relating to energy and democracy, the governing bodies around energy, and their understanding there. Also on a meta-analysis of best practices and resiliency, and they did a quantitative survey on emergency preparedness as well to uncover what some of the largest needs are within the community, because we cannot go in as a hammer looking to nail the problem. Ultimately, when it comes to outreach and engagement in our communities that are less invested in, we need to go in and understand what the barriers are in the interfacing of policy, of the monies and opportunities that have been made available by the president and by the state, and build the bridge that way. So,
one of the next or new opportunities here is so activating at the intersections and then interstitial resilience networks. I'm so curious about what that means. What's an interstitial resilience network?
Yeah, so interstitial, I'll define as it's the space in between. We have some city sponsored resilience hubs that are emergency preparedness director and resilience hub directors, and Tony and Barrett at the city of Minneapolis are focused on getting the ground running on, and we have locations there. But we also have an understanding, and I'll give a little bit of context to this story as well. A couple of years ago, there was a rate case by our energy company, Xcel Energy. All right, we want to make sure we have great power, don't have a lot of blackouts. I think Xcel does a great job with that. But Xcel had made a proposal, a 10,000-page proposal, that they wanted to raise rates by 21% for the ratepayer, and they had 10,000 pages of other policy plans that they wanted to change, and this was coming right on the heels of 2 back-to-back years of record-breaking profits. And as I would say, I found door knocking on this issue in the community, 99% of folks don't understand that it is an investor-owned utility. They do have built-in profits in their model, and the decisions around their rate of equity and ROI are made by a board that's called the Public Utility Board, which are judges that are appointed by the governor, and they sit for 6-year terms here in Minnesota. It's dictated by the different states have different term limits that they decide upon and how the nomination works, but that's how it works here in Minnesota. And they wanted to have a guaranteed increase to their profits, guaranteed increase to the base rate that ratepayers are paying, and this is coming right after the pandemic and different economic issues that we've had, and this is also in the context of policy they have written that unfairly charges folks who live in multifamily homes, which more often than not we find in our city, in our most populated, densely populated areas of their territory. And the science actually shows, and part of being an official intervener through the Just Solar Coalition was we sponsored and hired expert testimony from people from across the country. And they uncovered in their policy that they're charging people more money even though it costs them less to provide it. And more often than not, these are people who were more underserved and less represented in the governing bodies. And we took issue with that.
Yeah.
And in the negotiation room, I was lucky I wore a button-up shirt that day. It's only the second time in our country that a community group has been a part or been an intervener in this decision-making process. The first was in Colorado. And we, as our community coalition, thought, okay, yeah, we'll go here for 4 hours, and after we're going to go to this church. They're going to have the farm animals out. We're going to have dinner. It's going to be a great time. So I dressed with that in mind. I was like, okay, I'll go here, then I'm going to go here. But that wasn't what was in store for the day. It ended up being an 8-hour session of negotiations in a room full of lawyers and a magistrate that oversaw it and was going back and forth between us and the lawyers for Excel. And I remember a moment when the magistrate said, hey, we want to get the ball rolling and see if they're willing to play ball on any of these things. But before Excel will talk about anything policy-wise, they want to get an agreement on the increase to the ROI. And we went around the circle. It was the Attorney General had lawyers there, Target had some of their major industrials for that territory, had a lawyer there. There were a few other folks, Fresh Energy, Citizen Utility Board, Department of Commerce. We were all in the same room, essentially negotiating on the other side of Excel. And I was quiet at this point, feeling the pressure of, okay, like I'm the only black person in this room. I'm the only person of color here. But 2, I'm the only person who feels that this is egregious, that we give them what is most significant before we have spoken about anything that's important to us. And part of I know this is being long, but I'm almost to the end of the story, the point of the story here. Part of this negotiation process, it's considered a natural monopoly, and there's a status quo that's established that has continued historically speaking. And folks normally Excel gets their way because they have a significant amount of power, a significant amount of lobbying efforts as well, and spending money on campaigns and elections across the state. And I dared to ask the question, if we give Excel everything they want, what is our leverage for getting any of the changes that we need? And why don't we can give them that ROI, but we make it with the demand of our basic minimums as well as a group. And I feel like it was a pivotal moment in that negotiation process, and I feel like I found the reason why I was there. And to fast forward, after 2 days of settlement negotiations, the negotiation failed and it went to trial. And the judges ultimately denied the rate increase and denied the ROI increase. And I felt a large, thank you, I feel a large reason was because we decided to live with some creative, visionary leadership and to imagine, okay, what could be different in this moment? And to circle back to the resiliency hubs, after that decision was made by the judges, a large chunk of the investment at that time in the resilience hubs, about I think it was 10.8. It was between $8 and $11 million. Excel had pledged. I'm getting the number confused in my head if it was 10.8 or 8.6 or something like that.
A lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
Excel, and it's certainly not chump change to any of us, but to a company like Excel, it's not a ton of money for them. They decided, because of inflation, it no longer works out for them to give this money to the resilience hubs that are located in the Sabathany Center, which is near here, the American Indian Center on East Franklin. It's going to open up, and also there's one in North Minneapolis, is at an elementary school that Renewable Energy Partners is running. Excel said, okay, this money that we originally decided and you guys have been planning and hiring people, making decisions to move forward with, we can no longer do that because of inflation.
Yeah.
And I felt it was somewhat of a retaliation, but it also motivated me to understand, okay, what was that money really going towards? It was going towards some of our most vulnerable communities and investing in solar, battery backup, and hookups for breathing machines and dialysis machines so that people who, if we experience a power outage during a heat wave or during a storm of some sort, the people who are normally hurt the most in these times have a place that they can go to and be connected to, and it could literally save lives. And so, okay, Excel is retaliating, or has this power that they can literally take away, and we see through the pandemic and supply chain disruption and other issues that the communities that are hurt most are the ones that are most vulnerable. That Excel would take this money away from the most vulnerable community because they were not given the increase to their profit margin that is already a historic profit margin. And I decided, okay, well, first of all, those spaces aren't enough for our community anyway. And second of all, I don't like the fact that that they have so much power in this space. So I wanted to address two questions. One, how could we add capacity to our resilience framework in our communities? And two, how could we make it so it's not dependent upon an authority like Excel as well, and that we, from the grassroots in our communities, are at the helm of it.
Yeah.
So that interstitial resiliency is a space between geographically, but not only geographically, it's also within the power structure, a space in between the decision-making bodies of the main resilience hubs. And then also a large component of it is not just the instrumental investment or the investment in the electricity grid and the monies that are needed there, but it's also the social capacity. And understanding that in our communities, we raised our hands here talking about the climate crisis, but in many of the communities that I work in, folks are dealing with very immediate needs, such as how are they going to feed their family that day, or whether it's senior care or child care, or they have serious infrastructure issues with their home or their apartment that they're living in. And oftentimes talking about the climate crisis with folks who have an immediate need that day isn't as effective. And one thing that I discovered was, in order to have these conversations, we need to be connecting in a way that is comprehensive culturally, and also is addressing some of the mutual aid that is needed as well, whether it's in the form of food or childcare, to ensure that we're lifting up those communities while simultaneously moving forward with the work that we need to get done to address the climate crisis.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for your work. One of the things I'm noticing in this whole conversation is that I feel like what I've been told about climate change and what I can do about it has a lot to do with choices I make in like recycling and turning the lights off when I'm not in a room. But what I'm hearing from you, like your knowledge base on this stuff is way, 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 way higher than I knew existed. And it seems like it's more than just turning the lights off. It's more than just recycling. It's more, you know what I mean? And so I'm hearing this thought on a network and being involved in a network. And I think when we're talking about the climate crisis and climate justice, or really about any other big issue, like big problem where we need to solve problems, it doesn't feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't do a whole lot on my own. But if I can be a part of an interstitial resiliency network, we can work together to get things done. And what I heard in your story of showing up is that you weren't certain about what your role was until it became clear.
Yeah.
You didn't know what was your role until you did.
Yeah.
And you asked the question and moved something forward. Right?
That's right. 100% accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the spirit of not wrapping things up with a tidy bow, in the spirit of braving uncertainty together, you're going to find on the back of your Sunday paper, there's this QR code. It has the resources that we had on political polarization, but you'll also find on there a new list of things from MNIPL that Joshua has given to us to become involved in. So noting that one little yes today to even learning something new or to showing up as a volunteer or educating yourself, that might end up being an invitation into something bigger. And this is something bigger that we can be part of. Before we wrap up our time, we've got all the kids coming back. Do you have any sort of final thoughts or challenge or invitation for the community that is Fabric?
I do. And I'll add, I know you mentioned the text, I believe it's in
Ecclesiastes?
Ecclesiastes, yes, thank you. Of the three strands of the thread that weave together. And you mentioned you used the metaphor here to describe it's yourself, your community, and God. And that's really beautiful. And I wanted to just mention that at MNIPL, we use a three-legged stool approach to organizing. And just to give an option to folks here as well, I know I spoke a decent amount about politics and power building, and I would like to share that you don't necessarily have to get involved in a political front to make a difference in the climate crisis. And I'll add that participating in our community and being mindful and turning our lights off and they are very valuable, both for the climate and also for ourselves as well, and our rituals of our day-to-day lives and the mindfulness that we apply and the awareness that we're growing in. But I also just share that other aspects of that thread, other than policy, are relational. And building community with folks that are maybe different from us or appear to be different from us. A quote that I really love and utilize in my outreach is from the Dalai Lama, where he says that know that when you meet a stranger for the first time, that there is more in common between the two of you than you could learn in multiple lifetimes. So going in with that assumptive confidence in an interaction, but also with the meekness to go in and say there's a mystery to be explored here. And to be present in exploring that on an individual level, on a social level, and also on our relationship with God, I believe is very powerful to do. And let's see, I was talking about the threads. We have the policy, we have the relational in our society, and I also just add on in the implementation as well. At that link, you'll find some information on how you could also increase your own carbon footprint and the rebates that are available through the Inflation Reduction Act, so you could save money and have it paid for as well. But I would talk to each other, and I challenge folks here. I know that you're going to meet next week and reflect on this, to talk about how can you expand the tent and your outreach to include others that maybe have a different background from you, or maybe have different needs from you in the immediate sense, and see the humanness as well, and participate in the celebration of Earth Day as the celebration of an ancestor that we share together, and ultimately being curious and being in communication with and building relationships with others on our planet is one in which we are doing with God and love in our heart.
That feels like a good place to wrap it for today. Can we give a big round of applause for our guest, Joshua? Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. I would invite you, as we move toward the end of our time together, to pass these offering baskets. Include your communication card. We give you thanks for all the ways that you show up for one another and contribute to this community. Thanks for being here.
Well, as you finish up passing those baskets, I'd invite you to stand up and sing this last one together. Kids, if you can help your grown-ups do a little dancing, that'd be great. So Joshua mentioned this idea of paving paradise, putting up a parking lot. So here's a tune by Joni Mitchell called Big Yellow Taxi. With a paved paradise, put up a parking lot. With a pink hotel, boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Well, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? A paved paradise, put up a parking lot. Couple trees and put them in a tree museum. Charge the people $1.50 just to see them. Oh no, don't it always seem to go but you don't know what you got till it's gone. To pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Hey, farmer, put away your DDT. I don't care about spots on my apples, but leave me the birds and the bees, please. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone. To pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Late last night, I heard the screen door slam, and the big yellow taxi took away my man. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? The big paradise, put up a parking lot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? The pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Why not? They pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Hey, 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 they pay paradise, put up a parking lot. All right. Guess I don't know who I'm handing it to here. Brian. Perfect. So go ahead and have a seat for just a moment here. Brian's got some updates to share with us.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian, and I get to work with the Spring Giving Challenge, which a lot of you have been hearing about. So today, the big feature is we're going to do some makeovers if we reach a threshold. So before the service this morning, we were at 34 participants, and I'm happy to announce, can I get a little drum roll? We are up to 40. 40 was our threshold to bring two of our lovely staff members up for a makeover. So I'm going to invite Heidi and Della to come up. And there's more. If you have not participated yet and want to, if we stretch this to 42 people, we're going to bring Jen up as well. So if that's the case, just either head over to Melissa or Katie over here and volunteer if that's what you want to do. Don't feel compelled, but if we get two more, we're going to get Jen up here too. So with the two lovely staff members, we're going to have one kid per person come up and start the makeover, all right? So I'll let you pick the name, and hopefully they're still here.
Carter Lillihigh. I think they left, actually. Oh, no. Not Carter.
No.
Eva Pearson.
All right, Eva, come on up. And Heidi's going to pick another name.
Aurelia.
Yay, Aurelia! Is she?
I would take any Pearson sibling.
Okay. All right, let's see what you got. Yeah. And for those that have already participated and donated, thank you for your contributions to keep this community going. This campaign is crucial for a lot of what we do, especially the kids programming. So I think it's appropriate this morning that we have our two staff members who are leading the kids program to be giving back in a very fun way. But thank you for your generosity, for your donations, and for keeping this community alive and going. So thank you very much.
If you'd like to remain for the rest of the makeover, we'd invite you to do that, but also hear this permission that you may go out into the world, weave good fabric. Thanks for being here this morning. It's always a gift to be together. Thanks for being here.